The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make the louder noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Nephew. Bye-bye.
Yeah, please take your seat about it. We're with you. It's time for pickup. Start. 2, 1. Boost to ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's great to have you along for the ride. on this Tuesday, August 29th, Wednesday, August 30th. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond, hope you had a great day and night as we are live right here in the Great White North on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, and we are here for your entertainment 7 days a week. We welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial stations, WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are live as well at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Like our music, get your horns up for Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Now, if you're on social media, you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. You can also go to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows and subscribe to our iTunes channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. And we're on TalkStream Live as well. If you go over to our website, you can find us at spacedoutradio.com. Now, if you want to sign into this show and take part in it, you got to fill in to one of the chat rooms. Filter on in, why don't you? Go on to Revolution Radio, Spreaker, the UPRN chat room, or on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Now, I will get to your questions and comments in there as well because I am monitoring you live, Twitter, right in front of me. Now, if you head to our website for $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. And as of right now, go to our store, pick yourself up a t-shirt, stickers, posters, and you can read our encounter online by Everett Thiemer and Eric Markham. Check out my latest blog, and if you've had a sighting or an experience you can't explain, do me a favor, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. You can also catch some very cool videos from Tim Doyle and his UFO Seekers team, along with Leslie Mitchell-Clark's Contact TV. The Ouija board is one of those controversial objects that people love or they hate. Some people out there, like Robert Murch or Karen Dahlman, who will be doing a live Ouija board session on Halloween again this year, say they've never had anything bad or demonic happen to them. But for the most of the population who's played around with the Ouija board, it has been a catalyst for negativity. Think about it. How many times have you personally heard stories about objects flying across a room or lights flickering when someone uses a Ouija or a spirit board? The horror that comes out of that board for some people is right out of the start of a slasher movie. With a history of using the Ouija board, tonight's guest, author Ryan Willey, talks about his experiences and where it led him, from confusion in life to the spiritual realm, questioning everything, even himself, that he put pen to paper and wrote Becoming the Devil They Fear, a gay book of shadows. We welcome into Spaced Out Radio for the first time a good Canadian kid from the prairies, Ryan Willey. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, thank you.
Thank you so much for hopping on in and doing this. And, you know, being Canadian, you know, we love to promote our Canadian people around here, especially to most of our audience, which is around 70% of old Spaced Out Radio here. But they love you nonetheless. You know, how did you figure out that you needed to finally sit down and put pen to paper on Becoming the Devil They Fear?
Well, I basically become aware that of my Wiccan way, I guess, that I had outgrown Christianity at one point, and it was a really difficult time for me because Christianity had been such a huge part of my life. It was, I fell in love with a boy, actually, and that's how Christianity all started for me. Could I need a reading here?
Absolutely. You go right ahead. Tell us how it all got started.
Sure. So there was a boy that I fell in love with, and one of the first times this Christian boy called me, he asked me to go to a youth group. It was a rather strange idea to me, being a freshman in high school while he was still in junior high. Since the group would mainly be junior high kids, I hesitated. This boy was different, however. Although I wondered if the others in the group would be too childish for my liking, however, those thoughts went away quickly because of the feeling I had for the Christian boy. And even if the younger children annoyed me, at least I'd be with him. I simply couldn't get enough of my friend. I was more domesticated than the other children in the group, besides the boy I was falling for. We both had many good times playing with people's minds and making them feel awkward by saying inappropriate things. I remember the first time that I went to the group, I referred to the yellow Uno card as the color of, I'll say, pee. And I sometimes received weird looks by the others in the group. However, the youth pastor had a fairly good sense of humor and didn't get overly upset if I behaved more strangely than the other children. I found that the game nights were sort of lame, but I enjoyed the company of the boy who I loved, so I didn't care how much they were or how lame they were. However, we started having a lot of fun with the youth pastor's video camera. We made sketches, and a lot of them were really ridiculous. It made me feel like we were younger versions of a popular comedian at the time that I idolized, who made silly, raw videos on television named Tom. The youth group started to be a lot of fun once the Christian boy and I started to become comfortable about who we were and how we interacted with the other children. We would poke fun with a lot of the other kids and some of the beliefs they had adopted from their parents. I claimed that I was Roman Catholic due to my upbringing. However, due to having fairly liberal parents, I was able to adopt some beliefs which always seemed to be ahead of the society in which we live. Some of these children came from typical born-again families, which meant they were often homeschooled or sheltered. They were allowed to go to church-related events. However, if they were to have a friend over or go to the friend's house, their parents would keep a very close eye on who they associated with. They would have to meet their parents a few times before allowing them to be influenced by whomever their children had an interest in socializing with. Often the children didn't know what to think of my strange sense of humor, and I would even whisper inappropriate jokes and comments to them. Luckily, I wasn't kicked out of the group. The youth pastor was fairly understanding that my new love interest and I had a unique friendship in which we were simply being kids based on our unique personalities. He recognized that we were fairly influenced by outside sources in regards to humor, but he never seemed to mind. Although a lot of things we joked about were somewhat inappropriate for children our age, he knew that our humor was genuine, and that nothing would change us or what influences we wanted to associate with. He also knew that we had a hard time making friends, and because we were so close, he certainly would not try to get in the way of our friendship. Eventually, this boy was too old for junior high youth group, and so we switched over to the senior high youth group, which simply wasn't as fun. We were looked at as younger kids, and there was no way to take advantage of others for poking fun at them. However, this boy ended up being in the same high school as me, and I was able to poke fun with the friends in his class since I was 2 grades higher. it ultimately made high school a fun place to be. And once the other kids were poking fun at, would realize that we weren't trying to be mean, they soon became our friends. Eventually, a few of those friends introduced us to a youth group, and they attended, and it was like the junior high youth group all over again. However, because there were more of us who shared the idea of poking fun at religious fanatics, things seemed to be far more intense, and there ended up being many complaints from the church staff about our group of friends. On occasion, we would behave ourselves to stop the complaints. However, that wouldn't last very long. I eventually got a job at a fast food restaurant, and I worked with some people who were pagans. They introduced me to paganism and how they practiced it in their lives. I was still unsure, however, what God might think about such beliefs. I asked the youth pastor at the group one night what paganism was, and he basically told me it's basically a religion that mocks God. I still get a good chuckle out of his lack of knowledge of paganism since he went to college to become a youth pastor. Little did he know paganism predates Christianity, and Christianity was adopted by the Roman Catholic masses in which they made their own versions of pagan rituals. But at the time, I believed the pastor and disregarded paganism altogether.
Now
so that's kind of where it started.
Now let's go a little bit forward here, and let's just be blunt. Growing up in Saskatchewan as a young gay man cannot be that easy, considering Saskatchewan's known for its cowboys, its military, a very rough and tumble, type area where men were men and women were women, so to speak. It's still kind of old school that way.
Yeah.
How did you struggle trying to find yourself through not only religion, but through your own sexuality?
Well, religion was everywhere growing up. I mean, like I said, I was a Roman Catholic, but I never really went to church that much with my parents. We did on occasion with my grandparents, but my parents themselves were a little more liberal than other parents, and I did struggle being able to be myself, of course, socially, because I went to school and I went to Catholic school, right? So that was in itself really hard, and I didn't obviously want to be gay because I was afraid of being bullied. All the bullying that happened in high school, especially in grade 9, I guess, before my friend came along, some of the comments were like, "You're a fag" or something like that, and I didn't want to be that, and they didn't necessarily know that I was gay, but it was just something that kids said to emasculate each other.
So when you were growing up and having this own conflict within yourself, when did you start using a Ouija board?
Well, I started using, the first time I used a Ouija board would have been when I was around 11 or so. So it would have been a little bit before that. But I still had attractions to men, but because my hormones were aging so much, I also experienced some attractions to girls too. At that age, you don't really know what you are yet. So some people do, of course, but for me, I was kind of in the mix, I guess I would say. But as I grew older, I had overcome my fear. I had overcome my fear of the Ouija board. But when I was younger, I actually had a really creepy experience that I'd like to read for you guys. Yeah, here it is. So this is my first Ouija board experience that I called Opening the Door. After my parents divorced, my mother, sisters, and I moved into a duplex as a new beginning. A strange memory I have in our home was during an Easter break. My older sister, her friend, and I had the idea to purchase a Parker Brothers Ouija board from a store close to our home. And that was the Canadian Zellers at the time. I still remember the funny looks I got from other shoppers and the cashier. We took it home, lit a candle, and immediately opened the board from the box. My older sister and her friend used it at this time for the most part. The planchette looked as though it moved while they were barely touching it, and they seemed to be talking to a spirit. They were asked general questions about the spirit, but I was rather skeptical at this point and wished that we had taken that money and bought some lunch like we were supposed to. However, later in the evening, I became less skeptical. My mom came home and we hid the Ouija board in my older sister's bedroom in the basement. After supper, her friend and I joined her in the bedroom where I participated with them using the Ouija board. We spoke with a spirit who rather quickly started to scare the hell out of me. The planchette started to spell out the word curse. After numerous obscenities and name-calling geared towards us. Whenever we would ask the spirit what the spirit was talking about, the planchette repeatedly spelled curse. We eventually gave up on speaking with the spirit and put the board away. But afterwards, like for weeks, maybe months, I feared the dark. And I didn't really have a fear of the dark before that. I couldn't sleep by myself without getting so frightened that I was vomiting. I felt the spirit's eyes staring at me, and I never wanted to be alone, especially at night. I stepped to my mother's bed, and she didn't understand why I was so frightened until she heard that we watched the film The Exorcist at my father's house one evening. So she told me, it's no wonder why you're always so scared. But to tell you the truth, not even The Exorcist scared me as much as this strange invisible presence I sensed. However, I kept using the board with my sister while my mother went to work during the day. Even though I was scared at night, I was drawn to the Ouija board because I had never experienced anything like it. But every night, it terrified me so much that something was still in my presence watching me. Being the good brother I usually was to my sister, I didn't let my mom in on the secret that we had this Ouija board in our home at first. However, I wanted to get over my fear and eventually told my mother. She made my sister throw the Ouija board in the garage and the garbage outside, and I was able to start sleeping by myself again shortly after that. So my sister left our home shortly after that and moved in with my father due to difficulties of getting along with my mom. I eventually got the courage to start sleeping in my older sister's room and watch TV in there and staying up late during the summer break. However, I saw the edge of the Ouija board staring at me under my sister's dresser one night. To tell you the truth, I wish I could make this part seem creepy, that the board came back or something like that. However, it was just a matter that my sister had only thrown away the box. And it came in and hit, and she hid the board from us after throwing away that box. So my heart was pounding, and all that fear started coming back. So I broke the board in half and ran upstairs into my other room. And I left the broken board out for my mother to see. At this point, she didn't care so much, however, because she just wanted my sister to come back home. I was 11 years old when I used the Ouija board time. Ever since, I've had a connection with the other side. I wonder if the reason why I have this connection was because of a silly ritual I played with a girl, or maybe it was just there was a silly ritual that I played with a girl in when I was younger, and it was kind of like a game. And we would just stare at this little toy globe of the world and basically say, spirits of the world, please come out. I've seen some paranormal shows, and apparently some of them believe that, some of the hosts there believe that things you do when you're a kid, even though it may seem silly or something, can haunt you throughout your life. It's an interesting concept, I would say, but I'm not entirely sure if that's what happened or if it was because I played with the Ouija board. So you could probably assume that it was just all in my head, but there are some other stories to tell that happened later on in my life that may have you second guessing. So, but yeah.
So as you started to get into the whole spiritual aspect at around 11 years old, playing with the Ouija board, a lot of people would say, "What are you doing, kid? Why are you playing with that? And were you playing with it alone? Did you not know the potential dangers of it?"
When I was that young, I was just playing it with my sister. When I'm that age, it's like you almost want something creepy to happen, I guess. And you always hear the stories. You want to experience the spirit yourself. It's like electrifying to you when you're like just reaching puberty or whatever. Yeah, I never experienced anything like that at that point. And it scared the crap out of me.
Now, what scared you specifically?
It was the presence that I could feel. I became terrified of the dark, and I'd never been afraid of the dark before. I could feel whatever it was staring at me. Like, you hear so many stories of people saying that, and you could just kind of shake it off and say, oh, it's just in your mind. But until you actually experience that feeling, you just kind of know that it's real.
For a lot of people who play with the Ouija board, it almost becomes like an addiction, that you can't go a day without it, without having to check out some answers or see where everything is going. Did you start to have that at an early age too?
I definitely was addicted to it because, like I said, I played with it in the day a lot, but I would never play with it at night because I'd be too scared to do that. It's definitely addicting. It can be, but that's kind of when you start using it in an unhealthy manner, I'd say. There are ways to use it in a healthy manner, I would say, because I certainly believe that it's kind of like any other mediumship tool, I guess, that a medium would use. But the fact is, it's built like a board game with Hasbro or Parker Brothers, and kids don't quite understand that. So once they start experiencing it, and I'd say there's kids that probably aren't ready for it. So
we'll get into more of that in hour number 2, but more so focusing on you. As you started using it, how did the contact begin? Did it start very gently and then grow into something that was a little bit more sinister, or was it sinister right off the bat for you?
It felt sinister at the beginning, but that may have also been because it was just something I didn't understand. And I didn't like the feeling of something watching me. It was like something was intimidating me. So at the beginning, like nothing really appeared to me or anything. But eventually something did. I'm just trying to find
What did you see?
Well, it was during one night when I was a little bit older as a teenager. And I have the story here. So this one's called Another Ouija Board. And again, it's a true story. And we lived in this house that seemed to have a lot of spiritual energy in it. So as I grew older, I had overcome my fear of the experience I had with the Ouija board. My sister and I used. Soon after we moved into our duplex, my friends were interested in using a Ouija board with me. So I decided to surprise them and purchase one. I called one of my friends to tell them, and soon I received a couple more phone calls from friends excited to try it with me. I took it with me to one of my friends' homes that evening, and we immediately started using it. The results that evening suggest that one or more of my friends were moving the planchette themselves. It became obvious when I could see a friend who was rather narcissistic at times, using more hand activities than the others, and the answers we received were typical of his fictitious stories he'd share. So it became obvious that he was moving the planchette at this time. I've always known him to exaggerate the truth to satisfy his own portrayals of self. I often suspected that he just wanted to be relatable to the other friends in our group. When I went home that evening, I put the board away and didn't concern myself with it until the next day. Out of curiosity, I started to use it and ask questions. However, no matter what I asked, the planchette would repeatedly go to the letters A and J for the first while. I eventually asked, "Is that your name?" And the planchette moved to yes, then to John, John. And I asked, "Do you mean my grandpa?" And and then the planchette went to yes. My grandfather had not passed away at this point and was in palliative care. We knew his parish was coming soon, so I was curious and wanted to prepare myself for the death. "Do you know when he will pass away?" I asked, and the planchette moved to yes. "Will it be over a month?" I asked, and the planchette moved to no. "Will it be next week?" The planchette moved to no. "Will it be the week after?" The planchette moved to no. "Will it be the week after that?" I asked. The planchette moved to yes. "Monday?" I asked. The planchette moved to no. "Tuesday?" "No." Wednesday? No. Thursday? Then the plancher moved to yes, and the light bulb above me flickered for a moment. Curious, I took note of the date, which was 21 days later. 21 days passed, and the next morning my mother woke me up to tell me that my grandfather had passed away. I found it strange, but I didn't let it upset me. He was in palliative care, and we all saw it coming in the first place. I kept the fact that the prediction came true to myself for a long time. I had more questions and wanted to know what this force was, which happened to know when my grandfather would die. However, the Ouija board creeped me out a fair bit still after that, and I didn't want anything bad to happen like the stories I had heard before. Eventually, I burned the Ouija board in our backyard fire pit, but later resorted to an internet forum with many people who claimed to have psychic gifts. I simply told them what happened and that I didn't know whether I should be communicating with this spirit. Shortly after, I received a reply from a woman who seemed to have some answers. She told me that AJ was a spirit guide, or what I like to call a guardian angel. She told me that it was AJ's face who I saw that night in the moonlight on the edge of my bed, and that his actual name spelled AJ. According to her, AJ was trying to tell me something because I was frightened. He stopped appearing to me because I was frightened. Also, that eventually he would send a bluebird when he would like to tell me a message again. She mentioned that AJ was blocking negative energy, which may come from using the Ouija board, and that I should never fear using the board because he is always with me. Now, going back to what I saw on the edge of my bed, I didn't actually include that on my notes, but I'm sure everybody wants to know what that was. There was this one night. This was shortly after high school, and I had a lot of stress going on in my life. So I was wide awake in bed one night, just overthinking, head racing, and but suddenly I was facing the wall of my bed, and for some reason I moved my hand in one area of my bed, and I felt something really, really cold. And I looked over, and it was somebody just staring at me, and I could see his face in the moonlight. And I freaked out. I turned on my light, and it was gone. So, and apparently that's what this lady said was my guardian angel, interestingly enough. So.
Did you have any psychic type experiences before that, or had you looked into your own intuition, or was this all brand new to you?
Well, I've just seen things here and there. I mean, my intuition is mostly when it comes to being empathic. I guess that's kind of my gift, I would say. For an example, I can feel if I can feel what somebody's feeling even if they're not showing it. I can just kind of figure that out for myself. Now, the strange thing about that is that if a spirit starts to manifest itself, I can also feel what the spirit is feeling. So that's why I think when my whole Ouija board experience happened, I was so freaked out because I could feel that spirit intimidating me in a way. I could feel that his whole aura was sending off an intimidation. Now, for some people, that they just wouldn't get scared and just shake their shoulders and say whatever. But I think for somebody who's empathic, they can feel what spirits are feeling.
So do you feel that you're being raised of the Catholic religion, that you had a higher spirituality, but you hadn't connected with the gifts that you possibly were given, or you didn't want to look into those?
To tell you the truth, when I considered myself Catholic, it was more or less, I had an intimacy with what I called God at the time, that spiritual sense, but I could never feel it in the church. I could never feel, like when I went to church, I just felt like I was blocked from that intimacy, I would say. So I'd say that when I was in the church and being influenced by the church sometimes, that definitely did block off some of the gifts that I have. So,
have you, now that you consider yourself more pagan or Wiccan, have you looked towards developing that spirituality even more?
Yes, I do a lot of meditation.
Okay, but have you noticed any change in any personal intuition or intuitiveness towards being psychic medium or anything along those lines? Are you there, Ryan? Did you put your phone on mute accidentally?
Sorry, I think that's what I did.
Oh, there you go. There you go. We always have to check because, I got people on Twitter, including Mr. Skeptic, who will be saying that's the government trying to get into the phone call right now and cut it off. He's weird that way. But the whole point that I'm getting at here is when you were moving on and you started growing up and you became Wiccan, you became looking at more of a pagan type religion, did you start developing your own intuitive skills?
Yes, it's definitely become stronger. So,
how has it become stronger?
It's become stronger because I can just tell what people are thinking of me or what people think of others. Or I'm a bit of a mind reader at times, I'd say, but not to the point where I can exactly tell what they're saying, I guess, but I can get the general like body language or whatever you'd like to call it.
Mm-hmm. During your time when you were going through this entire pattern, Ryan, of trying to find yourself and your own spirituality and who you are, at any time did you start to question your own faith? On whether or not, the whole aspect of being a religious man, believer in God, but now that you're a gay man and Christianity, no matter what the sort, does seem to frown upon the sexuality of a person.
Yeah. So you're asking me if I felt troubled by the church, basically? Is that what you're saying?
By the church, or even in confusion inside yourself?
Yes. There's that one time where I had become brainwashed by an Alliance church. And a part of that was just because this boy who I fell in love with that I mentioned earlier, he took me to so many different churches, well, a few different churches. But I attended another youth group on occasion in a rather large church because the Christian boy who I had once fallen for started becoming very involved with 3 charismatic churches. I enjoyed going to 2 of those churches because I felt people enjoyed my unique brand of humor and my positive morals. The boy I once fell for was now more of a close friend to me rather than a romantic interest, and I would usually only go to youth groups with him. But after attending this large church for an extended period of time, this boy invited me to go to a youth group in the church for a weekend. It sounded like fun, and I made some new friends in the youth group, which were also attending. But my friend had gone once before and was excited for me to go because apparently it was a life-changing experience. He drove me to my place early on Saturday morning and seemed very excited that I was attending the retreat. Another friend of ours who had gone through the previous retreat was with him also, and for the weekend. I sat in the back seat and they kept saying these random things, which I assumed one would only understand if they had already attended the retreat. We arrived and entered the office area of the church where other newcomers of retreat were welcomed. There were around 40 of us, and we waited as the others who brought us to the retreat prepared to start. The friend who was with us in the car came and told us it was time to start. He was ecstatic and told us to join hands and form a line as he guided us into the gymnasium of the church. We were greeted with cheers and confetti being thrown in our faces as if we were very important people who had arrived to an event in our honor. Soon after, we all joined hands, and those who brought us sang the song about having a new life. I wasn't too worried about it at the time because I trusted my friend, and it all seemed quite positive. I had become more of a firm believer in Christ and more open to other denominations of Christianity. Although this event took place in Alliance Church, the event was meant to be for anyone seeking a path to the divine in their lives. I suppose this was their version of that, and I went into the retreat expecting to become closer to Jesus. There were a number of people who brought friends to this event, which they claimed to be a gift from the people who brought us. I definitely appreciate the sentiment of my friend and loved seeing how happy he was that I was there. However, there were on occasion people who left the retreat, and I attempted to leave. They attempted to leave, sorry. But when you tried to leave, you were surrounded by some of the organizers being questioned of why you wanted to leave. Then they would desperately try to convince you to stay and say things like, just wait it out. Just wait it out.
Let me ask you this, let me ask you this if you don't mind, but have you, or did you, previous to meeting your spirit guide, AJ, had you believed in spirit guides before? Had you heard of them?
Well, I believed in guardian angels. So that's why I just continued to call it a guardian angel. So.
But did you believe in them? I mean, you say you believe in them, but did you know who your own guardian angels were?
No, I had an idea, but I didn't necessarily believe in it.
And why is that, coming from a Christian faith where, you know, we all kind of expect to be surrounded by angels and people of God or beings of God?
Well, I was quite young at the time. When I think about it, with the Catholic faith and whatnot, they try to get everybody through the sacraments at such a young age. And it's meant to be something magical or something. But for some people, it just isn't. For some people, they can just see through the charade, I'd say. While others kind of cherish it and think it's special. For a while, I thought it was special, but then I realized nothing really changed in me.
Sticking with AJ, how did you learn your spirit guide's name?
It was the psychic in the online group that told me that. And the confirmation later came when I was walking with my niece, actually, because the psychic lady said that AJ would send a bluebird. We had an interesting day. She had stayed over for a sleepover, and we went to church the next morning, and we actually got to watch a baptism by a child named Ariana, and that was my niece's name. That is my niece's name. And I'm her godfather, so it was kind of like looking back and seeing that there was something mental about that moment, that I was chosen to kind of lead her in a spiritual path. So after the church, we ended up going for a walk, and we visited the oldest house in Saskatoon, called the Mar Residence. And apparently it's haunted. And there was an open house that day. But after that, we went over to a restaurant and we had some pie. And then we came across this store. And it was a metaphysical store called the Witch's Brew. So she said, I always wanted to go and look at one of those stores. And me being with her, I was like, well, whatever, let's go look at it. So we went inside, and she was looking around, and she suddenly just became drawn to this crystal shaped like a bluebird. And it was the very first thing she picked up. And I had never told her about this story before. And previously, there in her parents' house where she lives, there was some paranormal activity going on within the family. And so this was the older sister that I was talking about, that I tried the Ouija board with. And there was paranormal activity happening in her house too. So I bought that crystal for my niece, telling her to hold on to it, and that if she ever feels scared or something, to hold it for protection, because it's a symbol of an angel. So
we only got a couple minutes here before we have to go to our first break of the night. When you were dealing with your guide, AJ, who you met through a psychic medium, did you ever try to communicate with AJ on a Ouija board?
Yes, that's how actually it all began, with him communicating with me.
Okay.
But once I had became afraid of him. The Ouija board occurrences happened less. But then once I became more comfortable with the fact that it was my guardian angel, it actually started to increase. So to me, if it was something negative, it would increase if I were scared of it. But now that I'm not scared of it, it's increased. So
in the next hour, we're going to get more into the Ouija board aspect, because this sent you also, I believe, on a knowledgeable tour of trying to figure out what it was all about. And so we'll get more into that in hour number 2. Question, though, do you believe that because of your religion, being Catholic growing up, that if you would have told people you were using it, you might have been a little ostracized?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yes, for sure. I think I would, yeah.
All right, and we'll get more into that in hour number 2 here with our guest tonight, Ryan Willey on Spaced Out Radio. He's the author of Becoming the Devil They Fear, a gay book of shadows. We're going to get more into the Ouija board right after this on the Mighty SOR. Stick around for hour number 2. It's going to be a good one. We'll talk to you on the other side.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your Four Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Want a place to share your experiences without feeling judged? We have the place for you. If you've experienced sightings or contact with ETs, ghosts, cryptids, or UFOs, and you'd like someone to confidentially look into the matter, just fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our goal is to help you get the answers you need to the experiences you've had with our professional team of researchers. Your information stays 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines report. Fill out your experience today only at spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience, Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Joshua P. Warren is going to be joining us. We're talking everything paranormal and strange in the world. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We get going at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Great to have you with us. We're also live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Cinecocratical. Cinecocratical is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you could be like Mr. Skeptic, Canadian Joe, and more by by using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Follow us at Spaced Out Radio as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Subscribe and download our shows from iTunes. We're also on iHeartRadio in the United States and TalkStream Live. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including shopping at the Spaced Out Radio store. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, join the SOR Space Travelers Club, read the Encounter online, where my latest blog is up and running, or you can watch some UFO Seekers videos along with Contact TV. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking with Ryan Willey. He's the author of Becoming the Devil They Fear, A Gay Book of Shadows, and his experiences with the Ouija board. Ryan, welcome back.
Thank you.
What made you write the book, Becoming the Devil They Fear, A Gay Book of Shadows?
A lot of it was journal entries, really. What made me write the book, I had written so many versions of my past at one point. At one point, when I was embracing Christianity to a more fuller extent, I had kind of renounced the whole Ouija board thing and was even prayed over. But the book is also a book of shadows. It has a lot of information on correspondence tables, and it has information on spells and all sorts of witchy stuff that people will enjoy. So. And to expand on that, actually, like, I've always been a storyteller. I just didn't know, like, when I was a Christian, to where to put all these spooky stories, because a lot of them were kind of frowned upon, right? So now once I kind of had this awakening, I would say, I suddenly had all of these things I could connect to and put them into a book. So it all just kind of came together from different testimonies, blog entries, brainstorming for years, really. And it just all came into a book. So,
did you find, as you tried to bring your own experiences together, combined with what the church was telling you, that there was a big contradiction in what you were being told in a house of God compared to what you were experiencing yourself?
Yes, for sure. Like, however, like, that fear that I had, like, of my salvation essentially being at risk, like, that's what they preached, right? It takes over that. Like, it'll kind of lock that out in a sense. So, yeah.
So when you were seeing the contradictions of what was happening between you and what the message of the church was, which was supposed to be the voice of God, how did you deal with that personally? Where did you go seeking advice? Was it still the Ouija board, or was it other friends? How did you find it?
Well, there's other friends too, but none of them seemed to be as spiritual as my family. My family always seemed to kind of have an odd spiritual sense. So, like I said, me and my sister were quite spiritual with the board, but we didn't really, like, I didn't really know what to think of it, like, when I was so young. So my family has always been quite supportive and a little more liberalized than other people, so, that I have in my life. So.
Well, you were lucky in that point to have a supportive family.
Yeah.
A lot of people in your situation don't have that.
No, and my heart really goes out to them because for a while I was on campus with some clergy, providing a group for people being hurt in their church communities because of who they were, especially with the gay thing, for the LGBTQ community. And we kind of opened up a service at one time for people that could come and talk about the turmoil they are within their faith communities. And I think it really helped a lot of people move on from that.
Did you find that you needed to start researching the Ouija board more because of the experiences you had?
Yeah. I definitely researched a lot of it. I could tell you some of the research that I know about it, if you'd like.
Fire it away. Absolutely.
Sure. Well, since early in the Ouija board's history, it's been criticized by several Christian groups, including Roman Catholics. Catholic Answers, a Christian apologetics organization, states that the Ouija board is far from harmless and it is a form of divination, seeking information from the supernatural sources. In 2001, Ouija boards were burned in Alamogordo, New Mexico, by fundamentalist groups alongside with Harry Potter books as symbols of witchcraft. Religious criticism has also expressed beliefs that the Ouija board reveals information which should only be in God's hands, and thus it is a tool of Satan. A spokesperson for Human Life International described the boards as portal to talk to spirits and called for Hasbro to be prohibited from marketing them. Bishops in Micronesia called for the boards to be banned and warned congregations that they were talking to demons and devils when using the boards. Now, the name Ouija came from a session with Miss Peters, and that was inventor Elijah Bond's sister-in-law. She said, I remarked that we had not yet settled upon a name, and as the board had helped us in other ways, we would ask it to propose one. It spelled out Ouija. When I asked the meaning of the word, it said good luck. Now, I've also read in other articles that the name also comes from, like, in other language, and other languages, such as French, oui, and ja in German, means yes, yes. So there's kind of two stories I've seen on that particular fact. William Fuld came to be the one historian who would forever be remembered as the father of the Ouija board. William and Isaac Fuld embarked successfully on their new venture and manufactured Ouija boards in record numbers. For 26 years, William Fuld
Are you there, Ryan? Did you hit your mute on your phone again? Ryan, are you there? We lost Ryan. We're going to call Ryan right back here. I know you guys want that, so that's what we're going to do here. So please bear with me as we try and pick up the call again. Bear with me. You might hear a little bit of a ringing sound. There's one ring. How many rings will it go?
Hi, Dave.
There you
Sorry
are.
about that.
That's all right. It happens.
No.
It happens.
So anyways, what I was saying was William and Isaac Fuld embarked on successfully on their new venture and manufacturing Ouija boards in record numbers. For 26 years, William Fuld ran a company selling Ouija boards. When a large shipment consigned by St. Paul, Minnesota got lost and a search by railroad officials failed to find it, Fuld asked the Ouija board and it directed him to Ohio, right where it had been misdirected. The planchette came first, a form of spirit writing using a small basket with a pencil attached to one end. The medium simply had to touch the basket, establish contact, and the spirit would take over, writing the message from the great beyond. This pencil basket evolved into a heart-shaped planchette with a pencil at the tip. Spiritualists immediately discovered that in addition to writing messages, the planchette could perform as a pointer. They later found that the pointing method was a better way of communication, as planchette writing was often difficult or impossible to read. When the message indicator moved by itself from letter to letter to spell out a message, it looked genuinely magical and astonishing. Whether this new board was a reaction to or possibly responsible for the craze, we can only guess. It was a challenge just keeping the instrument centered on the paper long enough to get the decipherable message. The French word planchette translates to English as little plank. Others eliminated the planchette but kept the pencil, finding the hand a more precise and less troublesome writing instrument. People started to use message boards with the planchette, which were simple to make and required absolutely no understanding, skill, or mediumistic training, or so people were led to understand. Dubbed the witch board, it was described like this. Upon four corners of the board are respectively yes, no, goodbye, and good day, while the alphabet occupies the center of the board. A miniature standard, which rests upon four legs, stand upon the witch board, upon which the hands are placed, and then the spirits begin to work. Should an answer be yes or no, the small table will travel to the respective corner. Communications are spelled out by the diminutive table, resting over such letters as may be wanted to spell out a message. In February 1927, William Fuld climbed to the roof of his Harford Street factory in Baltimore to supervise the replacement of a flagpole. A support post that he was holding gave way and he fell to his death. Following his death, William's children took over and marketed many interesting Ouija versions of their own. They retired and sold the business to Parker Brothers. Parker Brothers produced an accurate full reproduction, but while they were eye-catching in the beginning, they eventually were made in a more cost-effective manner, looking for more like typical board games. Parker Brothers' slogan was, "It's only a game, isn't it?" Hasbro currently owns Parker Brothers. Other manufacturers have also joined in with imaginatively styled contemporary talking boards. Online auction sites allow artists who formerly would not have the opportunity to display and sell their handcrafted creations to a worldwide audience. Talking board enthusiasts are creating websites, sponsoring public shows and events, and connecting with other collectors in an entirely new way. At this period in time, the wonderful talking board has never been more popular. Now, to read more of a thorough history of the board, I'd suggest everybody to go to museumoftalkingboards.com/history. It also gets into some of the legal trials that happened with the board. And you can also, of course, ask a new friend of mine who I met online, Robert Murch, who's been on this show, questions about the Ouija board, because he's a Ouija expert/historian. Now, my theory, I guess, on the board is, while many claim that Ouija boards are evil, there are also those who believe it's just like any other method of mediumship, and that contacting evil spirits from the other side is in the eye of the beholder. In other words, if the only knowledge of the Ouija board is what the church tells you, or from horror movies, then you might contact evil spirits upon using one, as it has often been said that evil spirits feed off of fear. However, if you are a person like me who grew out of the notion that the board itself is evil, the Ouija board can be a wonderful tool for mediumship. Now, I'm going to be sharing a lot more stories on my blog, too, about Ouija boards. And I have some people that are sharing stories with me, too. So if anybody wants to go to my blog, it's witchywilly.blogspot.com.
When you were discussing the Ouija board and you reached out to Bob Murch, who is a very good friend of this show, what kind of questions did you need to ask him in order to calm your own nerves down from, trying to get the true aspect of what the board is supposed to be about?
To tell you the truth, I just needed him to confirm, good sources for me, because I read a lot of articles online, and I just wanted to know, since he is a historian, he would know that kind of thing, and he's very, very active in many ways in the horror community or paranormal community too. I just needed to know if websites such as museumoftalkingboards.com, how accurate they were to what he thought. And little did I know, the founder of that site actually taught Robert Murch a thing or two about Ouija boards, and that's part of the reason why he became so successful.
Robert Murch is one of the more brilliant guys on talking board history and in his communication with using the spirit board. When you started getting in touch with Bob, what was his reaction to you reaching out to him?
He was very friendly. I'm very excited that I had written a book about it too, and he had inquired about it. So, my book's not totally all just about Ouija boards, of course, but it did take an impact on me in some ways, obviously. He's quite ecstatic when he hears new stories of people, and he always wants to hear your stories. It's just a great feeling to get from somebody that made his way.
Did you almost feel some sort of conviction that you weren't crazy in regards to what had happened to you after you talked to him?
Well, I had already come across that conviction, but so many people would definitely feel that way. For example, when I felt like that I wasn't crazy was just simply when I started talking to my family about it more. Once my family started to tell stories about their paranormal experiences, not just my immediate family, but my extended family also. That most of them had experienced paranormal experiences on my dad's side. Now that's just, it definitely doesn't make you feel as crazy because other people are experiencing it too.
So as you looked into other people who had used it, what kind of stories did they share with you?
Other people that have used it, it's totally a controversial topic. Some people claim that they were possessed, and some people claim that they. When I say claim, I'm not trying to say that they weren't, because I give anybody a benefit of a doubt, obviously. But there's all sorts of stories that I've heard, such as, there is one fellow, actually in my book, who, I don't actually have this in my notes, but I can tell you that he was living with me in my apartment at one time because he had nowhere to live. And he had kind of dabbled, I guess, with the spiritual realm. He just kind of wanted to see how things would happen or react. And I think that's kind of the wrong way to go about it, because you're supposed to be, respectful to the dead. But as he started to use my Ouija board and he started to become more interested in spiritual rituals and whatnot, one night they went out, him and some friends of ours went out to a graveyard, and they were performing a seance, and I guess he did something to break the circle. He moved a candle or something off of a headstone, and suddenly he became ill, and he started vomiting this black tarry stuff out of himself, and it was like ectoplasm. If you'd ever looked back, the same kind of description. In history, people have talked about ectoplasm, and it's something that happens with psychics and mediums sometimes. And this is what was happening to my friend. And after that, he was just sort of out of it. And now when they came back to my apartment, I was at home, and they said that there was something wrong with Lucas, my friend. And he kind of didn't really say much. He was just kind of looking into the corner and looking away. And recently I had started getting back into Christianity at that point, because I took a break from it, tried out paganism, creeped myself out in some ways because I had dabbled like my friend had. Of course, paganism isn't just about the spiritual realm and creeping yourself out, or it's not really supposed to be like that. It's more about being in tune with the spiritual realm and being in tune with yourself also, and being in tune with yourself first. Now, because I was getting back into Christianity at this point, I started to rub my thumb on his forehead and in a cross shape. Now, this is very interesting because I think somebody's question in this regard would be, what do you think that power is when you're rubbing a cross on somebody's forehead, and a spirit gets a reaction out of it or something, if you're not actually a Christian? Now, for me, I think that every religion has some kind of power. I don't necessarily believe legitimacy about every religion, but I think that because of human nature and the forces of nature, that everything just has power, and that if some person believes that this cross or symbol, just like how the cross is used in pagan symbols, has power in a way that they believe, is going to work, because the mind is the most magnificent tool in witchcraft. So to me, like, sometimes prayers and casting out demons in Christianity is really not much different than witchcraft. So because I was Christian at this time, this is what I did in a Christian sense. I was rubbing the cross, this cross shape on his head with my thumb, and he suddenly started to react. And his face started to turn into expression, like his facial expressions were turning almost beast-like, I would say, like a wolf or something. And something very angry inside him took over him. And eventually I just started to yell. At first I wasn't yelling, of course. I said, in the name of Jesus Christ, get out of him. Leave this temple, basically. And then it started to react more. And this growly face just kept getting angrier and angrier. And then I started gradually saying out louder, in the name of Jesus Christ, get out of this temple. Get out, get out, get out. In the name of Jesus Christ, get out. And then he just started coughing and coughing and coughing. And, like the wind had been taken out of him or something. And then I asked him, are you okay? Are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And he couldn't remember anything from before, from during the graveyard to when he got home at my house, at my apartment. Because, he was sleeping on my couch at the time. But that was a really interesting moment that I'll always remember, I guess. It was very intense. And I still am in contact with that friend today, and he knows that I wrote that story about him in my book. And, everybody knows that my stories, that I wrote about them. And I've been really lucky that they've been okay with me sharing some stories about them. But I sent him like the rough draft, actually, and he just said, well, that's great, because it's a story that people can relate to.
A couple questions from our audience here. Milo is asking, what do you think the biggest danger in terms of getting a negative attachment using Ouija are?
Well, for me, I'm not too sure whether it's a demon or if it's just a spirit that's gone negative or something. I'm not too sure what I believe about that, but you really have to, I think you just have to go with your instincts on a lot of things. For an example, if you're looking to use the Ouija board, but for some reason your instinct is telling you no, then don't do it. Because there might be something attached to you already. And the more you try to contact it, the more it may manifest. So if it's something negative or it's something tempting you, maybe don't use the Ouija board, because it's not for everyone, I would say. Yeah, if something attaches itself to you, there's definitely things you can do to get rid of it. I have a friend who's a shaman, and he actually edited my book for me because he was a former editor. And his name is Trent Deerhorn. Wonderful person. And we go for a cup of coffee every once in a while. And he even had an experience where something attached itself to him to the point where he was even in that realm with the spirit, which sounds really interesting. But somehow, because he had practiced shamanism for so long, he was able to actually heal this hurt spirit that was trying to do bad to him. Now, depending on what spiritual background you go towards, there are people to help somebody that has negative energies attached to them. Maybe it's a priest, or maybe it's somebody in relation to your favorite Wicca metaphysical store. Maybe it's a shaman. Just look into your community. Look on Google. Look in your city for there'll be ways to find them, I think. So.
Question from Everett. He is asking, do you think everyone has the power to perform an exorcism?
I don't think I'm really qualified to answer that necessarily, because I've in fact questioned whether I was qualified to do that, because I guess I must have been lucky, because I've heard stories where things have gone terribly wrong, obviously, where people have died. And I'm not going to just shake my shoulders at something like that and just brush it off. These are people's accounts, and I think we should really take them seriously. I was a lot younger when I did this and casted out this demon, I'm not too sure if it's a demon or whatever it is. At the time, I believed it was a demon. But now my mythology, when I look to mythology, I start to look at other beliefs, and I start to believe in other things too. So, yeah, I'm just not qualified to answer that, I don't think, because I've never really experienced a dangerous encounter. Because to me, it wasn't really that dangerous when I did this. So,
let's get to a question from Shar, and she is asking, do you think a hex was put on the Ouija board when it was first designed?
From what I can tell in history, I think that if you're looking at a hex in like kind of sort of, like, I think that what it is that people just have this stigma that the Ouija board is bad, and that was just due to people saying that it was bad. And everybody knows, or many people will tell you that spells or hexes, they're just words, right? Like, they're just the energy you put into words. And the energy the church was putting into those words, that it was evil, that it was negative, that you're talking to Satan or you're talking to demons, that's a hex. I'm sorry. I think that it was kind of the church's own doing.
But a lot of people do believe, even if they're not religious, they are petrified of the Ouija board, saying it invokes demons or evil type of spirits out there. And it's funny because even people who are atheist will not touch this board.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's definitely the energy that has been put into it. And I think that because negative energy has been put into the history of the board, that possibly that's why people get negative entities from the board. And I think that part of it is also the psyche of the person too. If they think that something bad's going to happen, then they probably shouldn't do it. If they have a hunch or an inkling that maybe I shouldn't be doing this, then don't do it, because something in your mind is telling you not to do it because it might be dangerous. So, and if something is fearing that, then negative might come towards you and attach itself.
So how do you stop those types of entities from attaching?
Well, some people say a prayer. For me, I just I'll sometimes light my basement with sage, or I'll wear my pentagram to ground myself, and I think those kind of steps are ways that you can protect yourself. So which religion you're from, just do something that makes you feel grounded or protected, because or spiritually even too, because if you feel that your spirit is protected, then likely nothing can harm you.
A lot of people, and you mentioned this in hour number 1, believe that it is a board of Satan. Do you believe that?
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe in the devil. So my book, Becoming the Devil They Fear, is more or less a metaphor, and a double sword even, because to church people, they might think that I'm heading into a downward spiral or something to hell or the devil, or becoming the devil they fear. But at the same time, the harm that I've been put through being gay, or for having intuitive gifts, they themselves kind of become the devil they fear with some of the politics that they push onto people that are harmful. I feel personally. So I just feel like that if people have negative energy about the board in their minds already, that a devil, in a sense, could manifest in a way, but it might not actually be legitimately like what they think it is, or somebody just trying to scare the crap out of them.
So what do you think about all these satanic stories of, demonic shadows pinning people down, or the planchette moving on its own? Do you think that's all hyperbole that people have made up over time, or do you think those instances could have truly happened?
Oh, I think I would never say that they didn't happen. I definitely think that things like that do happen. I just think that the way we perceive them can be different on the way we believe in spirituality.
But do you believe there's a little bit of an over-exaggeration of the stories because of the reputation the board has?
Like, I mean, I have my doubts, but I mean, I've always had my doubts in certain things, but you know, it's not for me to say like whose experiences are wrong, because it's their experience, right? So I don't want to really say whether they're wrong or not, because I could be wrong too. So, like, you never know. Nobody really knows why we're here for sure. We just all kind of believe what we believe because it means something to us.
So do you still use the Ouija board on a regular basis now, or have you retired from it?
Not on a regular basis. However, I do, sometimes I feel a call, I'll say. Like something wants to contact me. And that's kind of my intuition, I would say. And every time that's happened, I've gotten some really interesting messages out of the board. For one instance, I have a friend in the U.S. who wanted me to contact whatever was in his house, and we became friends on the PlayStation Network because I'm a bit of a gamer. So we video called on Facebook, and I felt that it would be okay to perform this seance for him with the Ouija board. And he went ahead and just watched me and told me to ask certain questions. Now, the interesting part about the whole session was that near the end of our session, during that session, was that that entity seemed to be something positive. So maybe like a visitor that just came every once in a while. That's what it seemed like during that session. So it was nothing that attached itself to the daughter or anything in that instance. So.
Seems that we are having a little bit of a studio issue here right now in the area here, but we'll just continue on until the top of the hour here. Let us go into the stories about your own situations with meeting people. Did you find that a lot of people actually came through and started discussing more and more stories with you that they had in regards to using their own Ouija board? We're efforting to get Ryan back on the air with us right now.
Hi, Dave.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Dave. Sorry about that.
We seem to be having some technical issues on this part here because apparently our studio does not seem to be working right now. And I'm just trying to get an update because it's looking like it's working fine on my end. I just can't figure it out on their end, but that's okay. So the big question is, did you have a lot of people coming out in your neck of the woods and people who you associated with coming out telling their own Ouija board stories?
Yeah. There were some stories about people using Ouija boards. But most of the people that were going to come out and say it were people that wanted to warn me about something. And I think that's because if you're going to embrace the board, people are going to sometimes look at you like you're kind of crazy, that why would you enjoy playing with the Ouija board or something like that. So most people, when they come to me, it's definitely to warn me or something. So.
Do you have a lot of people coming up criticizing you, saying, why are you doing that? You shouldn't be messing with that.
Oh, yes, for sure. One of my friends who I worked with in a gas station, she's a witch too, and she used to make Ouija boards, actually, like an arts and crafts kind of thing. And she said that at one time she was sitting near the board, and she felt something with long, skinny hands like grab her thigh and clench onto it really hard. So, so there are definitely scary stories out there about it. So, and again, I think that's just a part of like the infamy about the board, that people said it was bad. So.
Carrie has a question. How did the Ouija board help you with your own personal issues regarding all of this?
Well, like I said, I had my guardian angel had come through to the Ouija board, and I feel like that I'm quite grounded in life, and I feel like that because a psychic medium had told me that this guardian angel is basically weeding out negative energy, that because I know that, it gives me some kind of feeling of safety, because I just feel like that it, in some ways, the messages I got through the board and on those occasions were kind of blessings in some way. So.
Do you use the board on your own, or are you using it with other people?
Sometimes I do on my own, and other times I don't. Now, the interesting thing about people, some people say that there's not enough energy to use it on your own, or some people say it's dangerous to use it on your own. But for me, I've never really had an issue with it. So, except for when I was younger. So, today, like now that I've kind of outgrown that idea that Ouija boards are evil, I feel like that as long as I just follow my instincts, and that the call that I get from the beyond that want me to contact them is genuine and isn't intimidating in any way, then I should be okay. That's basically what I think about that. So.
We only got a couple of minutes left before our final break of the night here, Ryan. Let us know how people can get your book. Where can they find it?
Sure. There's a website, or there's an independent booksellers store in Canada called McNally Robinson, and McNally Robinson's Booksellers it's called, and you can buy my book on their website. So McNallyRobinsonBooksellers.com, and you can find that on my blog also.
Do you plan on doing a secondary write-up to this book?
Not right away. Right now I'm looking at doing a novel. That's why I'm writing my blog so much, and all different sorts of things that interest me, because I'm kind of brainstorming right now. I'm doing movie reviews that have inspired me, and movie reviews that are just terrible, but for movies that are just terrible, but I still enjoy. the campy ones. But I'm just brainstorming right now, and I want to see what my next project will be about. So,
not a problem. Well, we are going to wrap things up and go to our final break of the night here momentarily. Do you recommend that people use the Ouija board if they never have?
Just go with your instinct. That's what I would say.
Ooh, that's pretty vague.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Okay, well, go with your instinct. Let me talk about this and let me expand on that.
Well, we're going to run out of time here, my friend. So, see,
Okay.
Here's the commercial stuff. Ryan Willey, our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I apologize. I didn't know what happened during that little snafu there where all of a sudden we got taken off the air because the studio on my end was running just perfectly. We'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. Hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio coming up right after this. Hope you stick with us, my friends.
We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays, from aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between. We got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who to pray to anymore.
Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you along for the ride as we continue on here on the mighty SOR. Tomorrow night on the program, I know the people in Twitter land are loving this. Joshua P. Warren will be our guest. We're talking all things paranormal, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We're also live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Synecocratical. Sinicocratical is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you could do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. Tune in, download and subscribe to our iTunes channel, and our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can shop at the Spaced Out Radio store. You can also hang out and listen to some Bumblefoot, rock with us. Little brother is watching. Read the Encounter online or watch some UFO Seekers videos along with Contact TV. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. Hour number 3, we bring in from the Encounter Online Everett Thiemer to join us. Thank you so much for joining us, Everett.
Hey, Dave. How's your night going?
My night's going fantastic, and you know what? We had a great interview the first 2 hours with Ryan Willey and his book, Becoming the Devil They Fear, A Gay Book of Shadows. It was a fantastic, fantastic interview. And, you know, one of the things that we were talking about during the show, Everett, was the Ouija board. Did you partake in Ouija board sessions when you were younger?
Not really when I was younger. I've seen them used, and I've used them a few times in investigations or you know, looking into the idea, but I've never been a huge, to me, they're just another thing. I don't have a lot of faith in them. I can't say that I don't believe them, but I don't have the power to channel through them, I guess. I guess that would be the best way to put it.
Even with that incredible hair of yours, it doesn't give you the strength.
No, it does not. Because I'm assuming that you have to have some sort of psychic or empathic ability to be able to connect with something to communicate through it, and I have none of that.
Did you ever have anything strange happen along the ends of the Ouija board when you were using it? Things that you just couldn't explain?
Sadly, no. I look at them, I guess, as a tool. I heard your guest talking about them, and I agree with him that, you know, I don't think they're innately evil or only able to summon demons. I think that they can be a good tool, but I also believe that you need some sort of connection to be able to use them, and I just don't have that. And the few times I have tried to use them or have been with somebody that's used them, from my skeptical eye, the results are questionable at best.
Man, you're already getting snarked on Twitter. Canadian Joe says, he says, at Everett Thiemer, I don't think Barry Manilow would approve of you using Ouija boards.
That's weak snark.
I think it's absolutely classic. No, that is absolutely classic. That is classic.
We don't know Barry Manilow's views on the paranormal because we, haven't had him on as a guest yet.
Well, we will try, just for you. I'm efforting that. I am efforting that. I can look back and say the first time I used a Ouija board or I ever saw one, I was a real youngster. I remember my sisters having one, and they hid it from Mom because Mom came from a very religious side of the family. Never really saw it used. And then in my teenage years, the Ouija board in the, late 80s seemed to make a little bit of a comeback. And I remember being at my friend Nikki's house, and she had actually drawn one out, and she was telling us how, strange things were happening in their house with it. Tried it out, nothing really happened. I then just kind of walked away from them, didn't really get involved with Ouija boards or anything along those lines up until, the early 2012, 2013, when I was starting to have a lot of my own experiences. And we used a spirit board over at a friend's house, and they had a wood stove. And that wood stove, it was like a nice warm summer night. So there was no point in having the wood stove on. However, in order to heat the house overnight, they would throw a few logs in there. And it was in their kitchen, and we're sitting at the kitchen table. We bring out this spirit board. And all of a sudden, the man of the house, Dave, he says, "Who started the fire in the wood stove?" And we all kind of looked. Well, none of us. We're sitting right here. The stove is, 5 feet away. None of us did it. And all of a sudden, the planchette started moving. And Dave's wife at the time says, "Do you know who lit the fire?" It went to yes. And she said,
with nobody touching it?
No, we were touching it. Okay? It was me and her who were touching it. And then she asked again, "Did you light the fire?" It went back to yes. And she said, "Why?" And it spelt out, "I was cold." Now, that fireplace hadn't been lit since about 9:30 that morning, and it was now about 10:30 at night when that happened. So 13 hours in between. And nobody opened up that stove in front of us to light it, and there was a fire burning in it. So that's probably the strangest Ouija board or spirit board story that I have right now.
And that's impressive. If I saw that, I would be a true Ouija board believer, I think.
Well, it made me believe, but the problem is, like our guest said, when you have something like that happen, you do become addicted to the experience. And that is, I think part of the problem is we start relying on the Ouija, much like you have people calling the 1-900 numbers for psychics or, visiting their psychic 2-3 times a week, trying to almost control their life. You almost get a little bit addicted to what is going on with it. And I think that could be a very big danger as well.
But is that just the nature of the paranormal, or is that the nature of the Ouija board? Because there are so many people who get, in a form, an addiction to investigating a particular site or place, or, doing certain rituals or using certain tools and continuing on when maybe they should move away a little bit. So is that something that's tied to the Ouija board, or could it be to the paranormal, or even just our own desire to experience something unexplained?
See, that's what I don't understand. I think it could be a combination. I'm not sure if the Ouija board is as evil as we make it out to be, because the one thing that I've learned in speaking to a lot of people about the paranormal is that we don't know what is going on. I think we can agree with that. That's a vague answer. Sorry, I dropped my drink there. I think that's a vague answer, but we don't know what's going on. I mean, what is the difference, Everett, in my opinion, between a Ouija board, people dowsing, people using crystals, people using psychics, people using, pendulums? I don't see the difference in that.
I don't see a difference. I think maybe I think they began to get a bad reputation when spiritualism kind of began to go out of favor. Really, I think that's when the public eye really focused on their potential to summon demons or whatever, and they just kind of let that grow and use that to scare people. And by scare people, I mean both ways. You get people who want to use them because they're looking for that thrill, and then you get the people out there who completely avoid them because they are so convinced that anything that they do with it is going to draw some sort of evil attachment to them.
Absolutely, but there was nothing evil to this board. People were using it. Kings and royalty were using it when it was first brought into design. Okay, it wasn't until, I believe, the 50s or 60s, and maybe somebody can correct me on that, that the church decided that it was evil and satanic. And that, to me, is a big issue, because before that, there were people using, all sorts of, whether it was a Ouija board, psychics, whatever it may be, to try and communicate with loved ones on the other side. But it wasn't until the church decided or deemed it to be evil that it got that reputation.
And that makes sense, because the church, especially organized church and organized religion, they don't necessarily want you to be able to communicate with anything directly. They would prefer you come to them to communicate with something. And then they can, I don't want to say control, but they can seem to have the power to connect you to God and not some unknown or unnecessary or evil spirit that you should want to avoid.
So do you think we really need to be avoiding them?
Ouija boards?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, I avoid them because they don't work for me, but I don't have any problem with somebody using one if they believe that they can communicate with somebody and they're comfortable with it, and they've moved past the idea that, they're going to become attached by something evil or whatever. I think it's fine that they use them. I honestly don't see it as anything more than any number of tools that different people have used, from tea leaves to throwing bones to, the latest FLIR cameras and spirit boxes and EVP recorders.
I would agree with you. I don't see a difference in any form of communication, and I do believe it's odd that people out there would, say the Ouija board is of an evil notion, yet they will accept the fact of using pendulums or, like you said, tea leaves or psychics. To me, it's all kind of wrapped into one.
But in a way, who today is promoting the idea that they are an evil or a bad way to communicate with spirits?
Well, I guess it's just a reputation it has.
Maybe it's time to change that reputation. But I mean, that reputation probably sells a lot of Ouija boards at Walmart to the 12-year-old, 15-year-old kids looking for a little scare but can't go out, ghost hunting at 3 o'clock in the morning because their parents won't let them.
According to this article that I found on theconversation.com, J. Godfrey Roper was a psychic investigator who hoped to scientifically prove spiritualism before he converted to Catholicism and renounced it. Pope Pius X. Maybe I'll change my radio name to Pius Scott.
Don't do that.
Cool. No, but Pope Pius X commissioned Roper to warn Catholics about the Ouija board. In 1919, he published a book called The New Black Magic and the Truth About the Ouija Board. And since then, it's when it all went to hell, so to speak.
Well, them darn spiritualists found a way to potentially communicate with spirits and with other beings. The church doesn't want that. They want you to come there.
Well, that's not... No, and I understand that point. And it's funny because one of the people I've been talking to lately, in regards to my own personal being, him and I have been having a lot of spiritual discussions because he's a very religious man, very good man, very nice man. And it's funny how, when you're talking to someone and having a good, interesting conversation, but if they're of the church, they continue to tell you how you have little or no faith. in the meantime, I'm sitting here telling him my own stories and said, I told him the story about seeing the spirit rise out of Grandma's body back in 2012 when I saw that. I said, have you had that happen? He goes, no. I said, then don't question my faith. But I asked him that question point blank. I said, explain to me the difference between a psychic and a prophet.
There isn't much of one.
Made him think on that one. He goes, well, a prophet is talking about the word of God, and the message comes directly from God. I said, and what about a psychic? Didn't really have an answer to that. Just fell back to the whole, well, it's not right to do kind of answer. Frustrating. Frustrating. Oh, and by the way, all aliens are demons too. We had that discussion. I said to him, let me ask you this. And I'm not going to mention his name because he is a good guy and he is helping me out. I said, let's take your side for a second. I said, you're a believer in God, right? He goes, right. He goes, obviously. I said, okay. God, the Alpha and Omega? Yes. I said, okay. So are you really that naive to believe that we are the only life form that God has created? Well, I'm sure there's other life forms elsewhere, but I tend to think that, we are of God's creation, and any other being coming here or visiting here is probably the work of Satan himself and all this. And I said, no, you didn't answer the question. I said, if God is the Alpha and the Omega, the be-all and end-all, the creator of everything, we can agree on that, right? He goes, yes. I said, how can you sit here and tell me that we are the only advanced civilization that God has created?
What was his answer?
He fell back biblically and said, well, I tend to believe that if people are having experiences that are against the Word of God and what is written in the Bible, then I would take that as to be something demonic. I said, so my follow-up then was, who's to say we're his only creation? Who's to say that there isn't far more advanced studies out there? Or planets out there with humans or aliens or whatever you want to call them, out there that haven't been around longer than we have. Didn't get it. Didn't want to believe it.
And that's a toughie, because the Bible talks about creating Earth, but who says it's the only Bible? And nobody hate me for that, but what if there are 40 other planets out there where it starts out the same way, and instead of, created heaven and earth, he created heaven and planet, whatever you want to call it. Why does religion have to be exclusive to this planet when you look at the Bible? Or why does life have to be exclusive to this planet? Nowhere in the Bible does it say there is no life anywhere else. And there are, you've had guests on the show where you've mentioned it briefly and talked about it. There are many hints or ideas proposed in the Bible that support the idea that there may be life in other places.
Absolutely. And trust me, it's not a shot at religion. Okay, it's not a shot at religion, but I did ask him, because I got a little snarky with him. I took a page from the hashtag Spaced Out Radio crowd, okay, and I got a little snarky with him. I said, which one of the 5,000 gods on this planet is real?
Ooh.
I said, I'm just saying.
And what was...
He's like, well, there is only one God. I said, under your context. But if you go ask the natives, if you go ask the native Indians, if you go ask the Buddhists, if you go ask the Muslims, if you go ask African tribes, you go ask other people, there's other gods. So,
and it's very it's very possible all those other gods are
the same God.
In one form or another, all the same God. If you look at many of the, not just the major religions, but the minor religions too, there are so many, I don't want to say coincidences, but similarities and the same stories or tales told in a slightly different way, that it just seems to me, in my opinion, that something has to be connecting all of these religions.
I would agree. You know, there has to be something along those lines for it. However, you know, it's amazing how there are so many different thoughts on this, and you're not allowed to think differently. You know? You're not allowed to think differently, and if you do, you're possessed. Like, I don't know how many times in the conversations my friend and I have had where he keeps questioning my faith. And I'm starting to get a little pissed off with it because I'm literally telling him, don't question my faith. My faith is strong. It just doesn't match up with yours. So it doesn't mean that I am wrong or you are wrong. So I'm getting a little PO'd about that. I'm not going to lie.
But isn't that just inherent to any organized religion? Any organized religion, their goal is typically to bring more people to their idea of God and to go out there and bring more people into their parishes or into their followers. So they almost have to do that just to grow themselves. And that is... Sadly, that is the general goal of most religions, to go out and spread themselves.
No, I very much understand that. And I looked him deep in the eye after this conversation. And it was a polite conversation, but I honestly looked him deep in the eye and I said, just so you know, for the record, I will never step foot in your church. I said, and it's not because of your church. I said, it's not because of your church. It's not because of the message. It's people in the church that are so bloody hypocritical that when you're an empath like I am, it's like going 15 rounds with Mike Tyson with your arms tied behind your back. And there is no knockout rule in effect. You got to go the distance.
Right.
You know? It's terrible. It's terrible.
It's also terrible when we tend to agree on the same things. We need to find some things we disagree on.
Well, you know, let's fire this one up. What do you think of Joel Osteen? We have a horrific flood happening in Houston, and God bless everybody who's been able to survive. Okay? And I'll tell you, those people down there who are wading through water, you guys are brave. Keep up the great fight. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. You know, but I can tell you this. I would, with the water moccasins, with the rattlesnakes, with the alligators that are in those areas, I don't think that I would actually be wading through the water, man, to get away. I'd be climbing up on my roof and waiting for the military helicopter to come get me. Or some boat.
I would be as high as I possibly could. And I'd be out of the water, too.
Absolutely. There's some dangerous stuff down there that will kill you. You know what? I did see a beautiful thing, because I'll tell you this. You know, everybody knows who listens to this show that I was evacuated from the forest fires here. Okay? And I did something really cool before the show, because next weekend, not this weekend coming up, but the following weekend, my next ghost hunt, we're actually donating all of our money that we receive to the 108 Volunteer Fire Department up here in town. And one of the stories that their chief, Marcel, told me was, and this is kind of sad, and I promise I will wrap it up back to Houston for a second, but one of the stories he told me was that during the firefighting, they had the wrong foot gear. And I didn't know there was different sets of foot gear for firefighters. I'm naive, okay? I'm stupid when it comes to this. I'm not afraid to admit it. You know, I mean, we all think those big clunky boots that they wear that are fireproof, that's what they were wearing. But the problem is when you're trying to deal with a fire that is on the ground and you know, you have to, you know, they were wearing the wrong footwear is what I'm saying. So guys were literally going in there with work boots on because they were getting blisters and their feet were not, the boots weren't working properly on the hard ground, especially when they had to go on a slope and everything like that. And guys were getting really bad blisters to the point where they couldn't even walk. But they were still out there fighting the pain, you know, in order to get the fires out. So a lot of guys went to their footwear, like steel-toed boots kind of thing, and they burnt their feet because the ground was so hot. So one of the stories he said was, we're actually going to be taking that money and investing it in proper footwear because they are expecting flare-ups right through the winter and into next summer. Okay, they had three flare-ups today. So it was really cool. Before tonight's volunteer fire practice, I actually got to go in to the fire hall. And there was probably a dozen of the firefighters there. And I said, thank you. This is who I am. I'm with the 108 Heritage Site Committee, and I run the Paranormal Ghost Tours there. And I was telling them what we were planning on doing for them. And I'll tell you, I said these words, and I just kind of babbled because that's what I do. And I said, you know, a lot of people haven't had a chance to thank you. And this is, I mean, you saved us. You saved our homes. You saved our community. And this is a way we're going to try and give back to you guys. And, you know, a lot of the guys, they actually kind of put their heads down, like they were almost ashamed to take the accolades. And I said to them, and I said, you know, whether you ladies and gentlemen in here want to believe it or not, you're heroes to a lot of us. You saved us. You saved our homes. So I know what it's like, you know, going through my own experiences, and I'm chatting with one of my ghost hunting partners, Carrie. Her and her husband are close to being evacuated. Apparently, the forest fire jumped the lake by them.
It jumped the lake?
Yes. I'm going to read her message here. And she says they are doing right now a tactical evacuation from Watch Lake Lodge east right now. Elephant Hill fire has crossed Little Green Lake Road heading north. So, pardon me, it hasn't jumped the lake. It's went around the lake and jumped the road. So, I mean, here we go again. Now, this is about 20 miles from me. Right?
That's still pretty close.
Exactly. You know, and then with the flare-ups that are going on around here, I mean, these poor guys, I mean, they're having a full-time job right now. They really are, right? So, I mean, I've just messaged Carrie here. I said, do you need a hand? Do you need me to get you out? Because literally, no offense to everybody here, I would leave the show. You know, you guys could do your own show. Everett, you could talk. I'll just leave the damn thing running, and I'll go help evacuate if that's what needs to be done. But anyways, getting back to the whole Houston thing, because I'm not trying to turn this into a whole Dave thing, okay, or the forest fire thing. I saw a great video today on social media, on Facebook, where this guy was driving down the highway, and he was literally driving for miles, and all on the side of the road were trucks towing boats. Okay, trucks towing boats, trying to get down to where they can, I guess, launch their boats to start searching for people or animals or whatever. You know, and I thought that was very impressive. You know, because it's in times of tragedy that people really come together. And it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, gay, straight, transgendered, whatever it may be. People come together for the sake of people. You know, I mean, who didn't see that picture online of those residents of that old age home that were sitting in recliners in like 2.5 feet of water? What the hell are those people supposed to do if some water moccasins get in there? Honestly, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
How do you leave old people stranded like that? You know?
I have no response for that. That is almost as low as you can be.
You know, when we had the fires here, true, different situation, okay? 100% different situation. But the first thing they did was they evacuated the seniors' facilities and the hospitals, knowing that people would have trouble, at that age, would have troubles breathing. Do you not think that if you're going to be having a hurricane and it's going to become hell on earth for a while, you know, that you might want to evacuate your elderly citizens?
Why didn't they? I mean, now down here, I don't know how it is in Canada, but in the U.S., a lot of these retirement or old age homes are privately owned. And I don't know exactly how the laws are structured, but maybe the institution itself was in some way responsible for evacuating their clients or their residents, and you know, the Coast Guard and the Army and the police and everybody that's down there, let's face it, they have their hands full with what's right in front of them. And these institutions or homes should have taken precautions a week ago, days ago, and figured it out. Unfortunately, if you have a building full of older residents and you are your own private company, what do you do if you don't have the resources?
You figure it out. You rent some buses. You're making millions. I have friends of mine who own senior citizens hospitals in Pennsylvania. Okay? And they look after their tenants or clients, whatever, patients, whatever they call them, first class. Very much first class. Okay? They mean the world. Like my two buddies, they're twins, Mark and Nathan, and they literally walk through every room. They know everybody's name. Like, they care. When I see something like that, especially in a private facility, I can't see how they were not prepared. Okay? How do you not get prepared? And if you had any type of action going, you would have evacuated those people. You would have evacuated them.
You would like to think that. Unfortunately, many of these homes and institutions and facilities are run by people who they provide the bare minimum of required care and are basically there just to collect the check.
So let's look at Joel Osteen for a second. Still some debate whether he's a preacher or whether he is a motivational speaker. Either way, he doesn't have to pay taxes. He's worth about $40 million, lives in a paid-off $10.5 million mansion. He tweets out yesterday, "Our heart breaks as we see the damage and destruction in our city. Please join us in helping Houston recover. Visit lakewoodchurch.com/relief." In other words, you can donate right to the church.
Yay!
Okay. So instead of doing the human thing, since you bought the old Houston Rockets arena and turned it into a 16,500 seat church, so you don't have to pay taxes, maybe, just maybe, you would have room to house some people. And if anybody saw any of the video footage from the news cameras or even, you know, people on social media going up to the arena, it hasn't been damaged by any sort of flooding. It makes you wonder.
Well, to his credit, once he started being called out on social media and in the news, he did finally open the doors. Once people...
Has he now?
Yeah, for the last report I heard, he did say he had made a statement that the church was going to be open to anybody who was displaced or needed help.
Oh, yes, and of course he will, as Shar says in the Spreaker chat room, he will be on TV in the morning, probably to say, oh, no, my people got it wrong, You know what? He's a classic example of why people turn away from religion. You know?
Oh, exactly. I've always had more again, people are going to send hate mail. I've always had more respect for the priest or the minister or the preacher who has a little parish where they're struggling to pay the bill to get the grass mowed, and he's doing it not to get rich, but because he really believes in what he's doing and he wants to help these people. Those guys and those women get, in my opinion, a whole lot more respect than a guy who stands on a stage and tells you that your life is going to be great if you read the Bible and follow the rules in his book, which you need to buy on your way out.
Yeah, I hear you. You know, I mean, let's face it. If people didn't bitch and complain, would Joel Osteen have opened up those doors? I don't think he would have. I don't think he would have.
That's a question. Yeah, that's a question he will have to answer to God, huh?
Well, if I'm God, I'm asking that question. And
if I had to answer it, I would say that, honestly, I think he caved to public outcry. I think that he wouldn't have opened it up without, all of this media attention that ultimately is going to affect his bottom line.
Well, exactly, and it should. I mean, the fact is, here you have him lying. Like, what was he afraid of? That some vagrant who doesn't make a lot of money or can't wear a nice suit, sleeping in the aisles of his church? I don't know, man. When when I see a lot of this stuff going on, and people wonder why nobody goes to the church anymore, or people are trying to find their own spiritualist movement. It actually makes me believe that these guys are so blind, especially the televangelists are so blind. And thank you, Jeff Gear at #SpaceOutRadio for posting the picture of the ladies sitting in the old folks' home in about 2.5 feet of water. That's terrible. That's disgusting. Yet in the meantime, Osteen finally caves to pressure after he was actually, for once in a long time, the media and the public did their job together and put pressure on him. But I'm telling you, there should have been no pressure for this idiot to open the doors.
In my view, whatever your faith is, whatever views you have, you should be able to turn to any church at a time like that. That if possible, any church should be open. I mean, that's virtually one of the tenets of every religion, is to help. And I can understand if, your church is underwater or flooding or has no power, or there are circumstances where maybe you just have to lock the doors and hope for the best and go away. But if you're not in a position like that, you should just, if you're a church, you should have your doors open and you should be welcoming people and you should be encouraging them to show up. Not locking your doors and just kind of keeping quiet till people start to notice you're not doing anything.
What are you hiding in your mini Vatican, Joel Osteen? What are you hiding? That's what I want to know. What are you afraid of?
I've heard that place has a spectacular recording studio.
Well, maybe we could hire him or rent out that studio in order to do this show.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen anymore, huh?
No, I don't think so. Damn it, I'm dropping everything around here. I'm so worked up over this. Damn it, Joel Osteen.
You haven't spilled that Pepsi, though, have you?
No, that's empty. That's empty. I'm actually on the water tonight.
I don't understand that.
Foreign concept. Look at this. Seriously. I got, seriously, everything is dropping around here right now. My goodness. I'm so worked up right now. I don't know what to do. But I'll tell you, it's ridiculous when you have things like that happen. At what point, Mr. Osteen, as you fly in your private plane that's worth about $25 million to spread the lovely word, at what point do you say, this is about humanity and not yourself? At what point?
Well, I think part of the problem is that he has convinced his parishioners, and he's not the only one, that he needs that plane. That's $25 million that could have gone to educate people, feed the homeless, work with anything, Habitat for Humanity to provide homes. There are so many other things that could have benefited from that I don't understand the need for somebody who has a giant church to have a private plane. There are many authors who go on speaking tours just like he does. Yeah, that fly coach, maybe first class once in a while, but they're not hopping on their own private plane and going to their own personal speaking engagements.
I don't know whether it was Ernst Ainsley or somebody along those lines, a former televangelist, maybe he still is, was once quoted as saying, the reason why he can't fly on public airlines is he can't breathe in the sin of every other passenger that is on that flight. Therefore, he needed his own private plane. It wasn't Cleflo Dollar. It was not him, but he was praying to God that his congregation needed to buy him a $64 million plane because, the $2.1 million penthouse in New York wasn't enough, and the mansion that he was currently living in, I believe in Georgia, wasn't enough as well. And the current Learjet that he was having, well, I guess it was out of style, right?
How do people do that with a straight face and convince people that it's actually what they believe and that God told them that?
I agree, but we also have certain people who are convinced that there's better radio shows than ours out there.
No. There's nobody that thinks that.
Yes, there is. I've talked to one or two of them.
Okay.
I know.
One or two. You can, we can convert them.
I know, just a bit outside. I get it. But what do you do? No, but the whole point is, whether or not he has taken a salary from that church doesn't matter. You didn't open the doors when people needed it. And you know what? I can go, let's rewind. Everybody here, when we went through this situation, I realized that my little hick town is much different than Houston. And I think Houston's, a couple million people, 3-4 million people? I realize it's a different attitude. I realize there is, a lot of things going on. But at some point, you have to be human. It shouldn't take public pressure and media pressure and probably governmental pressure to open up the doors. Look what happened when Hurricane Katrina went through New Orleans. They opened up the Superdome. It wasn't even a question. Get the people in there and out of the water. You know what I'm saying? Get the people in there.
What do you think this is going to do to him long term, though? Will this just fade away and he'll go back to, selling his books? And like you said, I've watched his show or infomercials, whatever it is. a couple of times, and he is more of a motivational speaker than a minister or preacher. So what do you think long-term this is going to do to his ministry?
Well, hopefully get him to pay taxes. But since there's a little law about that, one of our listeners says, people are just pissed off he is rich for writing books, and guess what? He doesn't owe us an apology for being wealthy. No, the question wasn't about his apology. It was not about him apologizing for being wealthy. Everybody has a right to be wealthy. Okay? You have people in a crisis situation. You have a church that is not affected by any water. A church is supposed to be the house of a people and the house of God. And you locked the doors on your own citizens, even your own congregation, for no reason. Then you lied about it and said there was too much damage to the building. You lied about your church. Look, whether or not he takes a salary from the church, hey, if he turns every dollar back to it, great. If he made most of his money off of his books and private speaking engagements, he's allowed. That's the free market system. That's capitalism working. This has nothing to do with him being wealthy. It has everything to do with him not opening up that building, a house of the Lord and a house of the people, to help the people in need, to keep them safe. He was greedy in that sense, and he got called out for his BS, and he deserved it.
Well, there's nothing wrong with him being wealthy, but let me ask you this. Is he making... Why is he more qualified to speak the word of God than any one of these small churches or local churches? What makes him more qualified? Is it just his charisma? Is it just what he has to say? And is he making his money by, in a way, selling his ideas of God?
Could be. But if he's not taking a salary from the church, then it doesn't matter. Okay? Then it doesn't matter. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to profess faith along with living a good lifestyle and trying to do unto your others as you would want done to you. But when you don't open the doors of the bloody church, what are you doing? Do you need a press pass to get in?
No, he's not going to want any press in there right now.
It's amazing how quickly they got all that damage cleaned up. One day. From going and saying that the place is wrecked by the flood to opening the doors to the citizens tomorrow morning. It's amazing how quickly that got turned around. They must have had one hell of a pump system to get the water out of there.
Well, hopefully his parishioners will see... Oh, I want to be careful phrasing this. Hopefully his congregation will respond in kind. His parishioners are hopefully better people than maybe we give them credit for, and they will see the light and make their decisions and make their actions based on what they've seen.
I hope so. Fingers crossed. But let us remember, okay, and I hope the media doesn't forget this, because I know they forgot it up here. There's a lot of good stories going on. There's a lot of good people who are giving water. Okay? I don't know if you guys saw the ad about Budweiser. Okay? But Budweiser's literally stopped making beer for right now, and they are canning water for the people in the affected areas. Because I could tell you firsthand, even everybody will say, well, shit, there's lots of water around. What do they need water for? You need water. It's amazing what happens and how panic-stricken when you're put in that type of situation, flood or fire, or whatever natural disaster it is, how water is the source. It's the lifeline. You know, and every time I went to the shelter, man, I was grabbing water. There was literally thousands of bottles of water. Old Davy there, I'm grabbing as much water as I can because literally there were shipments of water coming up here every day for people. Every day. So there are some good stories there. We need to look for those stories, and I hope the media doesn't drop the ball on the good people out there who are helping in the food banks, in the shelters, helping with clothing and diapers and shampoo and toothbrushes. You know, if you've never been through that type of situation, okay, you have no idea how humbling it is to walk into your community hall and somebody saying to you, do you need this? Do you need vegetables? Do you need dog food? Do you have a baby with you? Do you need diapers or pull-ups? Have you had a shower lately? Would you like to use the shower here? You know, you have no idea what that's like. So remember, there's good people there.
And we need to focus on those stories.
Absolutely, we do.
Joel Osteen is going to do what he's going to do, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But it's those stories, the small groups, the community action groups, all of the people that are coming together to get through this and to make a change. The more we hear about those stories, the better. Joel Osteen will come and go, and you know, his church will survive. It will probably be fine. Both, you know,
he's a
glory and his congregation.
Absolutely, he's a Gloria Gaynor song, man. He will survive. He will.
I didn't know you were familiar with Gloria Gaynor.
Hey. At first, Joel was afraid. He was petrified. But then he realized that he had the mighty God on his side. Shall we continue?
No.
Okay. All right. You got to admit, though, that was a good start.
That was.
Yeah. I'm pretty impressed with that right off the top of my head, actually. Hey, it was a great show. I'm firing up Bumblefoot. I'm firing up Bumblefoot.
Nice.
Yeah. Trying to find a location so Mr. B can get up to Vancouver for December 29th. With my luck, a snowstorm is going to keep me from having to get to that. I'm going hell or high water. I'm going. Everett, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Appreciate that, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Not a problem. We also want to thank our first 2 hours guest, Ryan Willey. What an amazing story he had. The author from Saskatchewan. Forgot to ask him if he wears a watermelon like Ron Moniak during Rough Rider games. But his book, Becoming the Devil They Fear, A Gay Book of Shadows. What a great book. I know all of you absolutely loved Ryan being on. We're going to see when we can bring him on again. I want to say thank you to everyone who is a part of the Spaced Out Radio team. We got Everett Thiemer and Eric Markham from the Encounter Online. Our Director of Business Management, Kim Gandy, who's looking good down in Florida right now, and I know you're listening, Kim. Tim Doyle, Jolene Lammers, Web Design, Catherine James, Social Media, Bob Davis, our furry-haired announcer. And, of course, we have Leslie Mitchell-Clark from LMC Media in Toronto. Spread the word about us. Tomorrow night on the program, Joshua P. Warren is going to join us. We're talking all things paranormal tomorrow night. Looking forward to having him on the air. I know the people in Twitter are waiting for it at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. It's going to be a good one. But most of all, everyone, I want to thank all of you. Because when you are taking part in the chat rooms, taking part on Twitter, spreading the love, sharing our posts, getting everything out there to the people that you know and that you love these topics. That makes us bigger, that makes us better, that makes us stronger. And I humbly thank you for doing that for us around Spaced Out Radio. Because together, my friends, we own the night. I will be back in 21 hours from now. I hope you are too. Let's have some fun again. And we'll do it all again tomorrow. Mr. Bumblefoot, do us a favor. Take us home. Good night.